Welcome to Mac and Blue, where we introduce you to who is building Arizona, bringing you the people and businesses that shape the landscape around us. From economic development and developers, underwriters and lenders, architects and engineers, to the very builders and suppliers that bring it all together. Now let's join our hosts, Robert Johnson and JJ Levenske, aka Mac and Blue.
Welcome to Mac and Blue. I'm Robert Johnson, Vice President of Business Development with Tori Contracting, and Santa Claus here with us, JJ Levenske, is the president of Bleuwave General Contracting.
At least for another week, maybe.
Exactly. Ho, ho, ho. You've had a good week. How are you doing this week?
I'm just excited to do this episode with you, my friend.
You know what? I have been looking forward to this one as well. And this is a first for us because it's the first holiday season that we have gone.
And our bromance has survived, 6 months or 5 months or whatever it is.
And we have, I know this is going to be a shocker for people, but we have never really fought, have we? We've never argued about anything.
Why would we?
Yeah, I don't know, because I'm very submissive and you say something and I say, okay. But no, it's been an interesting journey.
Yeah.
We just talked about this in a previous with our guests from the previous one that we saw.
We basically met on a blind date.
We did meet on a blind date. And so I do think we probably should talk about this because I don't think it's ever been discussed of how we got started.
Go ahead. You start.
Well, it was in a park, so
behind a candy truck.
Yes, I was selling popsicles. JJ and I both were on different podcasts hosted by different individuals. You about a year ago,
Correct.
Right out about a year ago.
With the same jacket.
Same jacket. It has not been washed, which I think we need to get that trend, keep it going.
Yeah. Layla's going to barf,
jackets.
But that's okay.
Yep. And so in what month was it?
Was it March?
That I reached out to you
February, March.
Sometime in there. I had been kicking around about doing a podcast personally and backed off completely. Just said, no, I'm not going to do it. Forget it. Was on the podcast and said, yeah, I think this would be cool. And told them, I'd like to ask somebody to do a pod. There's a guy that I met once. I know it's kind of weird.
But we stalked each other on LinkedIn.
I found his name written in a J. John and his telephone number, and I called him.
No. Remember, it was right next to Seabass. Meet me at 3:15 a.m. in the Wayside Inn somewhere.
Wow. We really did go off the rails. And so I reached out to you and said, hey, want to be on a podcast? You said, yeah. So we had an exploratory meeting scheduled.
Yep.
We met, and in about 45 minutes, we had whiteboarded, as you put it, about 3 years worth of content.
Well, not only that, but we should give Karen credit where credit's due. We met with Karen, and it was just karma, really, between you, me, and her, and we just kicked it off. Now, why don't you? Well, I'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone goes, well, where did Mac and Blue come from?
Mm-hmm.
If I remember right, the content was the easy part, and then we got a little intimidated because we're like, oh, we need a name.
Correct.
And I remember I was like, oh, I just glazed over it.
This was in that same meeting?
Yeah, well, in the same meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But it was towards the end of the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you or someone, I think it was you that said black and blue based on something. And then it instantly rhymed with Mac and Blue because the Bleuwave name. And at that time, again, you were with Mac Prefab.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, it was Mac and Blue. And I think on the logo part, what did we spend? Maybe 2 or 3 emails back and forth, and that was it. We'd figured out the logo as well.
Yeah,
that
we had one with a beanie, and we had all kinds of stuff. Yeah, it was.
We wanted the Arizona flag.
Yeah,
and the proverbial mic that symbolized podcasting, and I think the rest was history.
Yeah, the only thing that we haven't talked, and might as well have this discussion for others to listen to, is what's next. So we've kind of talked about what's next. geographically speaking.
Like my wife always says, dreaming's free. So let's talk the dream.
And maybe get some input from listeners.
Yes.
I would love to hear from people, and you can reach out through our webpage.
LinkedIn, whatever.
Yeah, macandblue.com. If you can't spell it by now.
Or send Santa Claus a snail mail.
Oh, there you go. Return address, North Pole. It's probably going to be something like I've changed and gone from Mac Prefab to Tori Contracting, which is corporate headquarters is in Las Vegas. We don't do just Arizona. We do kind of Western U.S. So we've discussed about maybe opening it up, easy for me to say, to Southwest, maybe Western. Maybe we just keep it the same and we just start inviting guests from other locations.
Well, and if you remember early on, we did do, I think in the first month or the first 6 weeks, we had multiple. We had Tim from Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
We
Strong
had
towns.
and then we had Chuck from. Well, Tim was from Concert, but he was with Cunningham. Remember, he was a principal architect with Cunningham for years.
Mm-hmm.
But they were doing the funky stuff. We had Chuck Marone with Strong Towns, who was also based in because of my background in Minnesota. We had, I remember because I was traveling, we did Rod Cullum and Brad Levitt.
Mm-hmm.
We did that remote on, what was the platform that we used at the time? I can't remember. StreamYard, yeah. And I thought that the remote thing worked. Was it as effective as this? I miss the human interaction.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think when the content is that strong, like those individuals brought it, we could do that regardless.
Yeah, I agree.
And so, again, for those of you listening or that are intrigued by what we're trying to do with Mac and Blue, your feedback would be we'd appreciate it to see if we're onto something. I know a lot of other people do that systematically on their platform, but go ahead.
No, I think I was just going to kind of state the obvious here that we both dressed for the holidays. This being our holiday, I'm just going to say it, Christmas podcast.
Yeah.
If you don't like that, then
don't listen.
Yeah, it is kind of our podcast, isn't it? So
and do what we want.
Yeah. I mean, we could go places there too, but we won't. So that being said, we've had one episode where we talked about the companies.
Correct.
We have never really done the deep dive on, JJ at 12, that kind of
Eating
stuff.
lead paint, being dropped on his head.
My previous time spent in the big house. And that kind of stuff.
And the tats that go along with it.
That's something we are not going to talk about.
What?
No, that is
prison and tats. It's like
it's like
Layla and puppies.
The prison part's funny. Yeah, the tats aren't funny. Especially in prison because they're really painful. But you do know they practice on grapefruit. That's how you practice doing a tattoo, because you're not going to do practice tattoos on a person. Yeah, it's just some prison knowledge for you. Yeah, some of our listeners already have that prison knowledge.
Now that everyone's checking off, we're down to three.
Everybody's like,
three
prison
listeners.
knowledge, click, 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 stop, pause. Yeah. So anyway, that being said, I thought we would kind of softball each other a couple of questions. So
we got to go back and forth, though.
No, I'm asking all the questions, you're answering, and then we're going to finish up and be like, thank you. So I had a few. Now, first of all, I think we've talked about this, but I get a lot of text messages from female listeners wanting to know if you're married. So,
yes.
Okay, married, kids.
Married to Kelly for, this will be 23 years coming up. I think I got the math right.
This is not one to mess up, by the way.
2 boys.
Okay.
Oldest is in the Marine Corps. And cool part is we just talked to him recently, and he's been based outside of Camp Lejeune in New River. He works on the logistics side for a helicopter wing or helicopter unit for the Marine Corps.
Yeah, helicopters don't have wings, but go ahead.
Versus the fixed wing,
okay.
The Ospreys and those kind of things.
Yeah,
so it's cool. He called the other day and said that he's probably going to be going to the Mediterranean next year for a deployment. So he's excited. We're excited. And then we have another son who's in high school, and we live in Los Angeles in Mesa, so he goes to the Red Mountain High School, if that's the district up there in Northeast Mesa. And his whole love is soccer. He not only plays soccer, but then when he's not playing soccer, he refs soccer, and the little bugger I think makes more money than you and I combined, because referees are in such high demand. I think he comes in with more cash on a weekend than you and I do post-tax.
For being a ref for other kids' soccer matches.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So good for him. Yeah. So anyway, and yes, and my wife, love her to death, like I said, almost 23 years.
Now she does something does something that's very interesting.
Yes, love her to death, and she has been an educator in and out of the formal system her whole life, multiple degrees, multiple endorsements, but particularly in art education, special ed, and then if you want to go one step further, kind of all the stuff that interacts with that. But her passion over the last few years has been, I'll go back to Bob and Travis, is horses. And so a few years back, she got deep into horses and doing horse therapy and combining all those things where art meets...
How do you know if a horse needs therapy?
Was that the famous joke at the watering hole?
Yeah, blazing saddles.
Exactly.
Yeah, anyway, go ahead.
That was fun. Mr. Johnson?
Yeah. But anyway, go ahead.
So yeah, she just finally combined all those things. And it was so cool to watch her like glowing at, we're in that mid-level age group bracket now, call it the 50s. And to see her come into her own, where after all these years, she finally melded all that together of servicing developmentally disabled kids with a passion for art, with her passion for horses, bringing it all together. And now she's in her nirvana spot. And if she's, like any good marriage, right? Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah, if mama's not happy, nobody's happy. Yep.
Anyway, that's me. Now, I don't get the text because no one likes me. But the question still comes up, what about your family, Robert? If they still talk to you.
Which one? You want the local Arizona family or the other family nobody knows about?
Well, once you were ostracized from Texas, now let's start there.
Yeah, so, okay, let me see here. This is 2023. So, this coming March, I will have been married for 44 years. You're supposed to say, you don't look that old. Oh, thank you, JJ. That's very kind of you. I got married when I was 7. No, married for
because
4.
in Louisiana it was legal.
That's right. Well, when she's your sister, you kind of know each other a lot better. No, so 44 years, so technically 43, 3 children, 10 grandchildren.
Any great-grandchildren?
No, but you don't
how many on the way?
You don't look old enough to have 10 grandchildren. Thanks, JJ.
I'm not getting these cues as he's kicking me under the table.
That's right. So, yeah, 3 great children, 2 girls, 1 boy.
They still talk to you?
This is, so far. Yeah, they're still good.
No, I just for the audience's sake, I know Robert's an excellent dad and father and grandfather.
We don't have enough time to have this discussion. You made me think about something else, the conversation I got about how do you know when you're a good dad? Because I know that you're going to agree with me.
Because they still show up at the holidays.
Okay, get it. But when you're going through that whole raising kid thing, there's so many times you think you blow it.
Oh, you never get a report card.
I mean, you're like,
No.
It's like, oh my goodness, man, I just blew that. That kid's, he's doomed. He's going to be a, axe murderer or something, I was too hard. I wasn't hard enough. You go through this where you kick yourself over and over again. So, think about that before you have children, because it's going to ruin your life and make it the best thing you ever did. So, yes, great children. My first grandchildren were twin girls that are now 16 years old. Wow, you don't look like you're old enough to have 16-year-old grand. Thank you, JJ.
You're welcome, sir.
Yeah.
I'm missing these cues.
No, it's okay. We'll get done. You'll think about it on the way home. My wife is the chief executive officer of the Johnson household. and does anything and everything, keeping all those kids and grandkids together and going and the house going and the bills paid.
And truth be told, she's also our biggest critic in a good way. When we first started, we had to go to her all the time.
No, it is exactly.
How did we do? Did we sound stupid? Well, the answer to that was always yes, but
Yes,
anyway.
it still is. She is our greatest critic, and we
love her for it.
Yeah. So, that being said, that's it on me. Did I leave something out? Oh, the prison stuff. No, I've never been in prison.
Yet.
Yeah, county jail. No. Detention. No.
Okay.
Good kid.
So as long as you're going,
Mhm.
I do get a lot of questions about, well, when we're together,
Mhm.
not behind your back,
Mhm.
because there is no way you're this old, but
Mhm.
you've got the experience of a 140-year-old, but you don't look it. So
Oh, wow.
condense that
You
down
finally got it.
to, you always tell the story good off the camera
Mhm.
about your father, construction, and then that next generation. Give us the Reader's Digest version of that, because the audience needs to know.
Yeah. Now, my dad wasn't in construction, but I started in construction when I was 15. I did get
By
kicked.
choice or default?
Okay, so if we're really going down this, oh my goodness. So I got kicked out of the house when I was 15. And
Wow, I would have never guessed that.
it's probably worth telling this story. It wasn't what did it, but it was the one that broke the camel's back. I drank rather heavily at the age of 15. And
It was legal back in the 40s, so don't worry about it.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, sorry. I didn't say that out
No,
loud.
we actually made it in the backyard. But I
In Grandma's
exactly. I decided to sneak into the house. Stayed out too late.
Oh, I got it.
I was.
You hadn't been kicked out yet, so you
No.
Okay.
And I was probably a little bit younger than 15. But I decided I'd stayed out too late. I was sneaking in the house. So I had learned to walk down the hallway and count the openings, with my hand with the lights out. The problem was the thermostat was right at forehead level. And we had an air conditioning unit that sounded like a 747 when it started. So I'm counting doors and counted, in my absence of thought, and walked straight into the thermostat, hit it with my head, and it fired off the 747. My dad says, "Is that you?" And yeah, the frivolity ensued. And so
Ooh.
I went and lived with my sister. Yeah. So and started in construction.
Okay.
And been in construction ever since. Been in construction. Let's see. I've been in construction from a laborer through the trades journeyman level, all of the estimating, project management, all that. I've been a licensed minister. I have been a funeral director. And there's some stories.
We're going down that path next.
I have, let me think of any other good ones, really good ones. Oh, that's really bad. That's basically it.
Teacher.
Oh, yes, I've been a teacher, taught 7th and 8th grade, algebra. I can't, that's about it. But so that's the reason why there's 110 years of mileage on this body. But
Thus ends the story.
no, so, I had my own business, underground utility contractor, for 3 years. That my son, I was going to bring up in the business, and he caught me one day and said, "Dad, I do not want to do this for the rest of my life. This is hard work." And so he's a project manager, not in construction, but does software stuff. He was a project manager with, the state for a while. I can't remember it's one of those real high-tech jobs. But anyway.
So here's my one more question, then I'll give you a break.
Mm-hmm.
Through all of that,
Mhm.
because you are so young and you look that young, and there's no way you could possibly fit this in your
Mhm.
time span.
Mm-hmm.
What
That's
was the
great.
craziest leap of faith you did, and what did that do to you? If you have to look at it now.
Tori Contracting, your full-service Division 9 contractor. Tori Contracting operates with a smaller, hands-on team. This cohesive structure results in superior workmanship and economical solutions. We deliver projects with unsurpassed commitment to quality and stewardship of budget. Tori Contracting, small enough to listen, big enough to deliver.
The craziest leap of faith. Okay, getting married wasn't a crazy leap of faith. Got married when I was 18. My wife was 19, so I married an older woman. She still is, by the way,
Cougar.
older than me. The craziest leap of faith.
I'm trying to give the audience inspiration through your experiences.
Because I don't know. That's a tough one to answer. I think I know what you're trying to get at, but I did go through like an extremely dark period. And by dark, I mean like I went dark for probably 5 years in there.
But you found something, though.
Oh, yeah, I found something. No, our family, throughout, my wife and I were both in the same church. We have an apostolic Pentecostal background.
Got it.
So I keep the snakes in the car for service. Just, if you need to pass any around, let me know. But so very strong faith-based. I decided that I was smarter than God and any faith that I could find, and really jumped off the rails, like bad jumped off the rails. My wife and I did not divorce. We were estranged for a few years, got back together, got the life squared away, everything squared. I mean, that's probably, when you say leap of faith, that was probably it. But, and from there, it's been smooth sailing because you kind of figure out how stupid you are and move on from there. But, I don't know if that answered your question, but it was a good one.
It did, and I think you answered it humbly and
And
also you were vulnerable in that, and I applaud you for it.
Yeah, well, one thing you will find about me is I am a very transparent guy. You're gonna get the good, and you're gonna get the bad.
You do have pants on, don't you?
I did in the last episode.
Okay. Thank God Layla and Sean keep the cameras above the table.
That's why there's a table.
All right.
Okay. And then, I'm going to ask you, and then I'm going to give you a couple of funeral director stories. Genuinely, probably the best stories you'll ever hear in your life. Okay. Biggest regret?
Not going into business for myself much sooner in life. I had so for those of you listening that think you're an entrepreneur, yes, that's easy to say. Go for it earlier in life. I overanalyzed it, thought too much about the fear factor.
I think people do.
Didn't
I think for the most part,
didn't
people
understand. And you know what? You don't need to understand it all. Just go for it. If you have any faith in yourself and conviction, I wish I would have opened my own business a lot sooner in life.
Yeah, kind of learn to fly the plane build as you're building it.
Right. Well, we've all done it for other people, or
Absolutely
a peer group or a group or a company, and it's like the risk isn't really that much greater because you're at the end of the day, you think about it, it's like, hold it. If we would have had a major catastrophe, they would have gone out of business, or over here, so what? I go out of business and start all over. What's the difference? But if that fear is driving you, then it's a blinding effect. So yeah, that is the biggest regret.
Yeah, is that you didn't start it soon enough?
Yep.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good. I actually thought about that. I did the business stint for a little bit, and just decided it wasn't for me.
And the other one is that, and this is kind of just out there. You talk about being vulnerable. Is I breezed through college because I'm probably kind of on the no. I mean, now I know that I'm probably on the spectrum a little bit, like kind of Asperger's.
Yeah, but you're a smart guy.
Right. So, but well, I don't know about that.
No, you are.
But the fact that I could regurgitate information led to college being very easy. Now, for those of you that know me, I did go back and start my MBA later on in life. And when I finally learned how to learn in graduate school, I found a whole new realm of how I could apply myself, my strengths and weakness, apply my strengths to avoid my weaknesses. That was a very fun journey for me. And so as far as the second regret is, if I could have found that a little earlier in life, I think I would have done some more exploratory stuff in the formal education side, not because I cared about the degree. I don't give a crap about degrees, but only to find what I could do, maybe to exploit my intellect to help others, if that makes sense.
No, makes absolute sense.
Yep.
Okay, so all that being said, what are you
Yeah.
most proud of?
Not having 2 children that are axe murderers yet.
You have some time to go.
No, it's
before.
it's funny because earlier, if you had asked me this question for the first 25 years of my life, I would have geared that answer towards professional accolades. And now,
I totally get it.
As you get older, it's all about looking in the mirror and saying, "Wow, life is too short." And you have a few deaths in your family, and you have these other humbling experiences, and pretty soon it's drawn back to the family unit. And knowing that, just like you said, has my marriage been perfect? Oh God, no. But the fact that we've stood by each other for 23 years, that I have 2 kids I love and admire, and every day am I over parenting? Am I under parenting? Am I just being a good person to them to show them what the real world's like? All those kind of things. That to me is what that's all about.
Yeah, we really.
How about you?
We really do. I mean, there's been some real aha moments as of late for me that, we say this all the time. I wish I would have listened. If you could go back, and say to your younger self, it wouldn't have mattered. We wouldn't have listened then either.
No.
But there really is a point in your life where you realize, man, I've been focusing on the wrong stuff.
Yep.
And I think that happens. Regardless of how much you try to teach and tell and whatever, there's a spot where it's like, oh, I should have been thinking like this the whole time. I could have taken a lot of grief.
But even when you look at I call it my ecosystem. I'm sure you have one too. Even when you look at the people you look up to or that you want to be around, the math is very low. I don't know I'm just going to throw it out there. One in every 200 figured it out sooner than the rest of the populace.
Correct.
Otherwise, the rest of us, we all drank from the same well. Now, is it ever too late? No. That's the cool part. But some people were able to look at it much sooner in their life and look at them. They're much more content. They're much happier. They're not as material based, and yet they still have the material things. They have the success, whether it's money, possessions, whatever, and or credits, if you want to call it that. And so you just look at that and go, wow, they just figured it out a little bit better. That's not a regret. I actually look at that as like inspiration.
No, and that really is what it is.
Yeah.
It's just somebody figured it out a little bit better. And, I figured it out for me. And figuring it out for yourself is different for everybody.
Bingo.
Yeah. I mean, for some, it's being an entrepreneur and having your own business. For others, it's robbing Circle K's. So,
let's go back to when you used to freebase the formaldehyde. Okay, so talk about the funeral director stuff. You got to tell a crazy story.
Oh, I've got 2.
Okay.
Now, so I'm going to start with this disclaimer.
Now, we don't have 2 hours.
No, they're not going to be 2 hours, but I am going to start with this disclaimer. I mean no disrespect to those that have passed away. Everybody here needs to understand that it's a job. Literally it becomes a job. So I went to work got hired at a Jewish cemetery, okay, which meant that you worked on Sundays because you don't work on Saturday, but you work on Sundays. That's not good for a faith-based guy. God, it's really, into that whole thing. But anyway, in Sun City, and the first day on the job, I'm dressed up, got my tie, I'm ready to go into a room. All the funeral directors meet in this room. We're in having a meeting, and the door flies open, and the embalmer walks in. Okay? That's the guy who does the embalming. And he's got on dirty jeans, a white T-shirt that's dirty on the belly, and red suspenders. Okay?
With a turkey baster?
I am not kidding. I could not make it any worse, okay? So, just giving you dropping that little nugget that you'll come back and pick up in a minute.
Okay.
Okay, my very first service to conduct as a funeral director. The lady is in the front in the chapel. You've all been into a chapel or been to a funeral, and there's pews on either side or chairs on either side, and there is up front the casket with the deceased. It's opened up. Everything's laid out. It's presented, I'm greeting, handing little people. It wasn't one of those kind of funerals, but it was handing people the little announcements and, the 23rd Psalm and, things. And the family comes in, okay? So the family, you console, daughter's crying, and I'm like, and you escort them to the front, to the casket for them to review their loved one. And so I take the family up to the front. The lady's sobbing, tissue, looking, she's embarrassed. People are seated. She gets up there and stops and looks up and says, "That's not my mother." I said,
True story.
"Are you sure?" That's actually what I said. "Are you sure?"
We made her look better than she was alive.
Sometimes I didn't say, sometimes they look a little different. No, I just said, "Are you sure?" She goes, "Yeah, it's not my mother." Come over here, have a seat. So have a seat. She sits. I fold everything up, close the casket, okay? Wheel the casket out of the chapel. Now, the chapel and the area where storage goes on is divided by a hallway, which is the entrance to come in before you go into the chapel. So people are coming in to go to the funeral. So I had to get somebody. So I've pushed the casket out down the hall. I have to get somebody to give me a sign when it's clear. And I have to run across, push this casket across the other side into the other area. And I'm flinging lids up on caskets, checking for names. I find the right one.
You mean there's not names on the outside?
No, it's not like you write them with a magic marker on the casket. So I find the right one, close it, have to do this whole thing in reverse, wheel it back into the chapel, open, get all the stuff laid out, go grab the family, walk back, and I went.
Ta-da!
And
did they give you the thumbs up?
Yeah, she started weeping, and
okay.
It's like, didn't say that's her mom, but I knew it.
Okay.
Second story, and we're moving on. The embalmer comes in to the next day's meeting, and we get done with the meeting, and he goes, I need you to give me a hand. And I'm like, okie dokie, here it goes.
Did he have same jeans and shirt on?
It was the same shirt, same suspenders, same jeans. He probably slept in the back. Anyway, I step out these double doors, and there is a gurney with a cardboard box on it, okay? 5 foot, 6 foot long cardboard box, about, 2 foot by 2 foot. Got little straps over it. Takes the straps off. Here's somebody's grandmother, okay? In a little blue sweatsuit, jogging suit. Passed away, elderly lady. He says, I need you to help me put her in the cooler. I said, okay. So we had to go into the cooler and remove some flowers for somebody else's upcoming funeral, which are stored in the cooler with other bodies. So we get everything moved around. We don't have it. Well, it's full everywhere except the top shelf. And I'm looking at him and saying, what do we do? And he starts swinging her like, 1, 2. And he says, we need to top shelf her. And I'm like, okay, that's where I'm going to end that story. But
no, keep going. It's too good. Did you crush the flowers?
No, she flew past the flowers all the way up into the top shelf. So, yeah.
First of all,
that all happened within my first 2 days.
Who the hell
of
delivers their body in a box?
So it had come from like the hospital or whatever, and that's what they had covered it with.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was in my first 2 days of employment. On my third day at the graveside, I'm standing there, and you've got the grave, okay, and you've seen the little cart
Yep.
the casket sits on, and you have the service, and everybody walks away except the family, and it wheels in, lowers in. While the service is going on, I hear this. I look up, and one end of the casket is starting to go down because the little wheel, the little strap it's not stuck. So it's going down, and people are talking, and people are pointing, and I just walk over without saying anything.
Crank it back up.
Crank it back up, walk back over to the side. I stand aside. The guy's still speaking. I hear, "Week, week," except it's louder because 2 of the pulleys are now, and the casket is starting to lower itself. So as the guy's talking, he's standing in front of it, and it just continues to disappear. So I had to run back, and then I had to roll up both sides. Anyway, funeral directors that are listening, I love you. You do a fantastic job. Nobody knows.
Maybe, if we were Comedy Central, we should maybe do an episode just on that.
I'm going to tell you right now, I have told those stories a few times, and every single time people are like, I'll never be able to go to a funeral again without thinking of them. But yeah, that was probably that's probably where I had the most fun. Oh, by the way, to finish the story, I lasted 3 days.
You quit or got fired? Yes.
Yeah, I got fired. Yeah, after all of that. And I got fired because of
swinging grandma?
I don't know if you realize this, but you have to have a permit to bury someone.
And you were burying
I
illegally.
didn't know you needed to have a permit. And so the day I found out was the third day when we were at the mausoleum outside and had the little service for the family. And while the service is going on, the guys that do the digging with the backhoe and stuff, and they're wearing like janitor uniform, walks up to me, whispers in my ear, and says, "We don't have a permit. You can't close it." And I'm like, I don't know what he's talking about. So I had to sit there for about 4 hours with this casket outside of the mausoleum waiting for the permit to show up.
Classic.
So that was kind of my fault.
I love that. All right, switching gears.
Mm-hmm. What was your favorite job? Let's change it. Which was your funniest job?
Well, since
You're never going to top the funeral director thing, so don't try, but you're okay.
No. I always tell this story that I was very fortunate that in college, I basically worked construction my whole life, so on and off on different construction jobs. But as far as tangential stuff, was lucky enough my freshman year in college, I had a friend who got me into waitering and bartending at a very high-class joint which was rural nowhere, Wisconsin, right?
So drop in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where, like wearing first time wearing a tie every day and that kind of stuff.
You were a bartender that wore a tie every day.
Well, I started waitering.
Okay.
And then I always wanted to be a bartender, so I went and did whatever you had to do to become a bartender. And then that just led to a lot of good things. So truth be told, while I was in college, I took a year off and went out to Vail, Colorado, Beaver Creek. So here's where it gets interesting is, Midwestern work ethic. I get out there. Now, I'm naive. I'd seen alcohol and pot, but I never seen hardcore drugs.
So a year later,
I get to I get to Vail and Beaver Creek, and everyone my age group is strung out on cocaine, acid, heroin, you name it. I saw it all in about 2 weeks, and I was freaked out by it. But because of that, guess what? I pretty soon, if any of you have ever been there, I was, 20. I wasn't even of age. I was 20 years old or whatever. Of course, I had a fake ID like everyone did in Wisconsin because that's what you did. And I'm out in Beaver Creek making money, so much money, I didn't know what to do.
Right.
So I'm at the base of Beaver Creek at the Hyatt Regency working in the restaurant there. And what I always tell people is that it paved the way for my future because it made me appreciate that if you just were true to yourself, doing work. I walked away with so much stinking cash. I came back. I paid for college all through things just with cash.
So you obviously didn't do drugs.
No.
No. So you sold them.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where the cash came from. So I was like, okay, I get it.
But the point is that it's out. My wife and I talk about this all the time, that having both been brought up in that industry, we call it the 3-foot MBA. You ever heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
That bar between you and the customer, if you can master that, you've got life figured out for the rest of your life. You can read people, you understand their idiosyncrasies, their mannerisms, and if you can play off that and add humor and do this, it's just like making a sale, Robert.
Being a great listener, all those things.
Yeah, or not being a good listener. And your tips were directly related to it. So it was just a good life lesson. But nothing, I mean, there was crazy stuff. Like, I remember we saved a guy's life one day, and, it was kind of cool out there. I got to serve celebrities all the time.
Sure.
I remember, like, Peter Jennings, for those of you old enough to remember the old ABC News, Sugar Ray Leonard, lots of sports figures back in that was the
Vail was
very
a
early
happening
90s.
place.
Well, this was actually Beaver Creek, and they were, co-owned by Vail and Associates at the time. So anyway, let's get a little bit of that background.
There comes a time when dreams become a reality, when you see your vision materialize into a true work of art. And the only way to get there is to choose a general contractor who shares that same vision and knows how to bring it to life. At Bleuwave, we aren't so big that we've forgotten where we've come from, and we aren't so small that we can't care for your projects regardless of their size. When your vision deserves safety, perfection, timeliness, and expertise in order to become a reality, trust Bleuwave to get it done right the first time.
Okay, what's go ahead.
I wanted to switch to Christmas traditions.
Okay, Christmas traditions.
Not crazy. They can be crazy. They can be fun. They can be just traditions. What are some of the Johnson household Christmas traditions?
Turducken.
Really? And do you order them from, or do you make them yourself?
Make them myself.
Ooh. Now, the first turducken, if I remember right,
Came over
was
on the Mayflower.
somewhere outside of New Orleans. Is that correct?
I want to say that sounds right.
There was some small town that they kind of invented it, or I should say invented it. They're the ones that figured out how to monetize it and kind of commercialize it.
Exactly. This was even before you could really, selling things online and that kind of thing. I remember I had a back surgery many years ago. And during my recuperation, I saw an article in a newspaper. For those of you that don't know what a newspaper is, it's made out of paper and had news on it. And there was an ad. There was an article about the turducken.
I'm so shocked. You're too young to know what a newspaper is, Rob.
Man, it took a long time for you to get it. Okay. And so I decided, back surgery, I'm laying up in bed. I decided, okay, I'm going to make a turducken for Thanksgiving and Christmas, or I think maybe it was Christmas the first time. That's a lot of work.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was on my feet, trying to debone. Well, not really debone, but debone a turkey, because you have to take the structure out of the turkey, and where it's just meat, and then you layer in stuff.
It's like a turkey burrito.
Oh my goodness, though they're so good.
Yeah.
We kind of got burned out, but that's one.
Turducken. Okay.
We are starting a new Christmas tradition, which is on Christmas Eve.
Give all the presents to Grandpa Robert.
Money, just cash. Is we usually do prime rib on Christmas Eve.
Okay.
So we are going to do deep fried prime rib.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a thing. Did you even know it was a thing?
Yes, I actually did.
Have you ever had it?
No, I have not.
I haven't, but I'm going to this year. It looks good. The problem is, you have to be a little crazy to put, $120 to $150 piece of meat in a deep fryer.
Our friends and someone that might be listening, he's done one both old school and in one of those like the big air fryers too.
Oh, an air fryer.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and it is that I have had, and it's freaking awesome.
Yeah, it's good. How about you? Christmas traditions?
Well, I actually wrote them down because I thought it was interesting. Is
Cheater.
I had to because otherwise, with my memory, be getting older. Talking about going from one end of the spectrum to the
Have
other.
I met you before?
Hello.
Yep.
Remember that movie, 50 First Dates? Hi, I'm Tom. Hi, I'm Tom. A couple of fun things is you guys all know Ralphie, the Christmas Story movie.
Yes. Not everybody, but yeah, most
Well,
of it. 60%
on
of us.
TV nowadays, of course, I think all 24 hours, it just runs continuous on Christmas Eve and Christmas. We always have to watch the Christmas Story from beginning to end. Ralphie, you'll shoot your eye out with the Red Ryder BB gun. That's one. And then the other one is my wife. We always get matching pajamas for Christmas.
Oh, we should have had a podcast with that.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool. So, in Arizona, let's be honest, flannel PJs are only applicable for 2 months out of the year. So I've got an entire closet full of flannel pajamas that I really never wear.
Right.
But it is cool tradition. So we get them all matching every year.
It's going to make for a great museum.
Yeah. And then other than that, I mean, we've got fractured family all over the country, so we don't get to do as conventional things like what you do. But we each year we try to get my wife one of the new different nutcracker style.
Yeah.
So above the top, some people do like Department 56 and all those kind of tchotchkes, if you will. But ours is get a different nutcracker every year. You got anything crazy like that?
Nope.
All right.
No, not at all.
So other than, I can't think of anything else on Christmas as far as traditions.
Did you teach your children about Santa Claus? Or was it just kind of a given?
Yeah, think about that. I think it was just kind of a given. How about you?
Yeah, we were never big on Santa Claus. To grow up in I guess religious is the wrong word, but a home with a lot of faith.
Yep.
You don't tell them it was Santa Claus, and you don't have the manger scene with Santa kneeling at the manger, stuff like that. Although it is pretty cute. So no, that wasn't. I do have. How weird is Elf on a Shelf?
Well, it's funny. I wrote that, but we only did it for like a few years. But I was curious because we never got into it, but a lot of people, it seems like.
Oh, I had family galore. We had my sister-in-law and her husband and their family had a home in Jackson, Wyoming. And we would go out every other Christmas. The whole family would go there.
Beautiful spot.
Oh, Grand Tetons out the windows. It was beautiful. And they did Elf on the Shelf. And, we had to go all out and at night, make trip wires and, all kinds of things for Elf. And I'm not a good kind of guy for that kind of stuff because my sense of humor gets a little whacked. And, you'll find Elf on the Shelf in multiple parts and through the house and kids come screaming and yelling and, just things like that. Elf on the Shelf will be carried around the house by the dog the next morning or, something. And it just kills the kids. But
okay, so I'm going to switch questioning, going back a different direction. We kind of started off this by kind of letting our audience know where we wanted to go, right?
That's where this is why we do this together, because that's where I was going to go next.
So, but before we go there as Mac and Bleu, what's kind of, where are you at with Robert Johnson in the legacy of what you want to leave in the current space you're at or whatever you're doing? Because you and I have limited time left in our industry. And so I'm curious, like, apart from Tori Contracting, what's kind of Robert's swan song?
And this is interesting coming from an older guy. I don't hear this much, but my thing is.
What do you mean? You're so young.
Yeah, man, you got it.
I'm getting the cues now.
You are.
My shin is sore, but
yeah, it should, and you'll be saying this for days now. Construction is changing, and we have built the same for hundreds of years, and we cannot continue to build that way as our population evolves, as our technology evolves, as people evolve. And as the labor pool dissolves. My big thing right now is whether it's prefabricated cold form steel or prefabricated electrical components, whatever it is, how we're going to build better in the future. That's kind of, professionally, is my thing. And whether, and certainly I expect Tori to be the last job that I ever have. I'll work there until the day they roll me in front of the family.
Funeral. I can't even say it right until they give you your funeral director card.
Yes, I'll get
Mr.
my
3-day chump card.
my FD card.
Yeah.
But personal level is I have gotten a little bit more passionate about talking about change because of the period of life that I went through and how important it is to deal with that change and find that change. And
for those of you that follow us on Mac and Blue, please follow Robert Johnson on his personal stuff. And I give you a golf clap. You're doing a great job with the advocacy for change. Your newsletter, your daily posts, especially on LinkedIn. Keep it up. I think you've got some various inspiring words there and messages that I see resonating with a lot of fellow professionals and not only our industry but nationwide. So keep it up.
You're welcome. Or thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. It's an interesting. I never really anticipated because I'm not. We don't do television. We don't do anything of that kind of nature. So social media wasn't something that ever really, got me. When my wife and I reconciled, part of my daily habit was to journal or write down the good things, positive vibes, positive thoughts, thinking, keeping the head going that way. And it just turned into this perpetual habit that I do every day. Sometimes it's regurgitated material from the past. Sometimes it's new stuff. The Change Maker newsletter is new, still relatively new, although I have amassed a little over 17,000 followers. So, or subscribers or whatever you want to call them there. So I am doing something with that. There's probably a future podcast in the offing for that and that type of content at some point. That is where my audience is.
Yeah.
I've leveraged that audience for my work and my professional life.
No, they kind of go hand in hand, though.
Yeah, and they do. So, that's kind of it for me. What about you? What's happening what's going on with you and Bleuwave and the things you can talk about or want to talk about?
Bleuwave, it's not that I'm not going to talk about it, but that I want to keep in the same context of how I asked you. So I'm going to go down the personal. For the audience sake, though, Bleuwave, we're still in the GC, the traditional GC space. Most of you know that we did launch HVAC, plumbing, electrical service divisions this year, looking for, again, more of a holistic package for our customers. But also,
sorry to interrupt you, is like pet grooming and car wash, things like that?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Okay.
But there's no secret. The main reason I did it, or we did it, was to have a better enterprise value so that we could be either sold or do something part of an evolution. We feel very strongly about what Bleuwave stands for. But again, we also did the math, and we're smart enough into the paradigm shift that you were talking about, going, we can't be everything for everybody. So if we have this, I know this sounds like an oxymoron, kind of a laser-focused diversity, then we will be very attractive to a very certain sector moving forward in the construction space. And I always describe it as, how do we have a boutique service but looking much more sophisticated in a grander sense? And that's kind of where our marketing goes. However, back to on the personal side, much like you, I can't stand how we're still in a post-World War II construction deliverable type thing. I don't care if you...
It was one of the things that resonated between the two of us.
I mean,
the whole thing.
We've talked about it numerous times. I don't care if it's IP, integrated project delivery, BIM, all the technology. If you don't effectuate it, it's worth nothing.
AR, AI.
Right. So where my passions lie right now, and a little bit about this, is I still want to see, and we've mentioned some of this even earlier today and also in previous podcasts, is, kind of what Concert's doing with Tim, those kind of people. I still want to see like right now, my kind of geek out part is I still believe in blockchain. Forget about what's happening in crypto.
I absolutely agree with you here.
Crypto is just crypto. But when we can truly get blockchain integrated on everything we're doing, I think we'll have transformed the construction space substantially.
Yep.
I also want, when we released the episode with Todd and Todd, the exoskeleton stuff that they were talking about when helping the trade base, I'm more on the admin side and the executive side. I'm going down the digital twin part right now. I'm geeking out on digital twins of going, hold it. If I could digital twin my strengths into this, or this, how could I change the industry and effectuate a large enough change that it can move the dial?
Right.
Okay. So that's kind of the stuff I'm geeking out on. So it's the same as what you're doing, but just a little different.
Yeah.
You luckily have a more in touch side with the tangible deliverable, and I'm kind of over more in the intangible deliverable.
But I love it. I mean, doesn't mean my mind doesn't go there.
Yeah.
I just have a little trouble getting myself to.
Well, they're
see
both integrated.
Yeah, I get
because
it.
what you want to do, you need what I'm thinking about, and what I'm thinking about doesn't matter if we can't get it to here.
Right.
Because if what I do, if we just go back to the traditional, like you said, bricks and stick and labor from 1982, we haven't done anything, and that's been the biggest crux and problem with our industry. I actually think that because of everything we've been going through socioeconomically lately, I think it's going to push us there sooner than a lot of people expect.
That is definitely going to happen. And there's going to be a lot of fallout
Bingo.
from the people that refuse to adopt.
Yep.
Yeah, it's change. It goes back to just people hate change.
Yep.
A lot of people hate change. Anyway.
And I think those that embrace it now will have far greater results than those that did in the past. I mean, I already had a huge disparity, but I think it's only going to get, like they say, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Well, the smart entrepreneurs are only going to keep going down this path. Capitalism still prevails every day of the week. And, I think we've talked about it. Every time there's a problem, just look at the math and look at the solutions. It's not, and some people may get offended by this, it's not government, it's not big corporations, it's not this that's solving that. It's the little guys and gals that are rolling up their sleeves and figuring out true solutions. And then, well, guess what? Then these people come in and go, all right, we'll give you a 10 times multiplier for your solution.
That's what happens.
Right.
Every time. I just want to be that little guy that
does
that and has
I
this
know.
guy.
You're close.
Yeah.
Well, geez, buddy, we're going into the holidays. Any words of wisdom?
Once you get there.
Huh?
Once you get there. I'm giving you words of wisdom.
Oh.
Once you get there you are. Okay. Did you want anything deeper?
No.
Oh, okay.
That was hard for me to comprehend.
No, so are we going to be doing this next year?
Heck yeah.
You think so? I do too. I agree. I think that's a given. I don't think
I kind of feel like our bromance is just starting.
Yeah, that's super.
And if Layla and Sean will still have us. What?
That's what I meant to say.
What?
Layla and Sean. So
behind the scenes.
We have not mentioned this. I don't think we've really talked about this. I don't think we've said personalized solutions on the air.
Well, we should.
No, we need to. Merry Christmas. Yes, and I'm only going to speak for myself, but I know he feels the same way. We made the change to personalized solutions in November, I believe it was. And the only regret I have is that we didn't do it sooner. Not because the people we were working with were bad people, but their vision, I think, fits our vision much, much better. And I cannot say good enough things about them.
Yep. And that they're puppy whisperers.
That doesn't hurt.
We should tell a story on a future podcast.
Yeah, I mean, any place that you can have a podcast and puppies being born in the next room, it is like nirvana. That is the.
They're starting a GoFundMe page for their therapy, though. They need.
Yeah. Yeah, we will have to talk about that at some point. But hats off, props for any of you that are, and I know there's a lot of people that I follow on LinkedIn and that follow me on LinkedIn that are podcast people. Billy Samoa, there's just a lot of people that do it for a living.
Yep.
And I read. These people do all of that and then some.
Right.
So anybody that's looking, especially in the Phoenix, Arizona market, you need to come and talk to these folks. You need to reach out to Layla and to get their information. Just reach out to me or JJ.
I think the other thing too is audience. Thank you for following us for a few, since April.
Really wouldn't be a podcast
No.
if there wasn't. I mean, there could be, but we'd just be talking to nothing.
And we would be remiss. We have a long, lengthy list of guests we think would be appealing to all of you. But please, please, please send us any recommendations you have. Looking back at what we've done, where we need to go, we will always take any suggestions, vet them, and see if it's right for what's called Building Arizona. Remember, this isn't just tangible building. We're looking at guests that can inspire anything related to Building Arizona.
Yeah.
And really back to what you said earlier, the Southwest, the whatever. I mean, it was a tagline we used early and often.
But don't hesitate to send me an email or you an email if you're interested.
Yeah, if you want to be a guest.
Yeah, just absolutely reach out. If it fits, it'll fit, and we'll let you know. If not, we might be able to direct you to a podcast that would be a good fit.
I think that's a great point. Pay it forward.
Yeah. So with all that being said, I think we're done.
Merry Christmas.
Ho, ho, ho.
Happy New Year.
Yep. And
see you all again.
This one might be a see you next year.
Yeah. See you in 2023.
Okay. Get us out of here.
You've been listening to the Mac and Blue Show, brought to you by Tori Contracting and Bleuwave General Contracting. Be sure to subscribe to the Mac and Blue podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Follow Robert Johnson and JJ Levenske on LinkedIn and Instagram. Tune in live every first and third Thursday at 3 p.m. as we continue to introduce you to the people building Arizona. Walt Disney said, "You can dream, create, design, and build the most wonderful place in the world, but it requires people to make the dream a reality." Until next time, make it a great day.